Don't go, never, bro, never go trade in.
We are recording on that note.
Welcome to Racking Our Brains. I'm Paul.
And I'm Abdul. And today we're discussing something that we've been thinking about, and I hope you'll think about it too.
I'm most excited to learn how other people feel about topics I'm passionate about.
We know you have something to share, so leave a comment below.
Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get our newest discussion.
We're back for a quick ad hoc discussion.
It's not gonna be quick. Don't do that.
It is going to be quick. I have to. We're going to keep this short form, maybe a half hour. I don't think I can blow.
You're wasting time. Let's go.
Do it. So the topic is the idea that one cannot be reasoned out of something that they were not reasoned into. I have a lot of feelings about this, but go ahead.
It's stupid and wrong. Next question. I'm not even joking.
That's kind of how I felt, right? Like I felt this would be quick enough.
I don't even understand the premise.
You don't?
No.
So, okay, I'm going to defend it because we've touched on this a number of times. You have pointed it out across episodes. I'm a big indoctrination is a big deal person. And I guess let's get that out of the way. Let's define indoctrination. The process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically. Right? So that element is massive. You will not question what you are being told is truth. And most prevalently, it's easiest to do that with children, right? Even simple parenting things. Just do what I tell you. Do as I say, not as I do, even sometimes, which is awful, right? Because then if a child or anyone else can see that, okay, the people that are telling me to do something are actually doing something different, it makes it more difficult. But at the very least, we're saying, I'm saying. I think there is plenty of indoctrination that happens in parenting. And then in a more serious or specific scale or venue, religion, to me, is massive indoctrination, right? Before a child can speak, before they can walk, they're, I guess with Christianity, they're baptized, but you're brought into the faith mostly. If family has a faith, a religion, and there are no questions from the child, it's just, this is something you're going to do, and then you teach them. And again, as this definition says, without being able to critique or question what's being taught. So that's there. And again, I frame that because I think that phrase, one cannot be reasoned out of something that they were not reasoned into, has to do with indoctrination, right? If you are indoctrinated, you were not reasoned into this belief you have. So children in America, I'm going to say you were born into a Christian family, you are baptized, you're raised as a Christian, you're taught to believe the Christian faith. You did not do that by reason. You didn't say, what's out there, what's around, let me think about some of the unanswered questions I have, and then say, okay, I'm picking a belief system. That would almost be reasoning. But what happens is certainly not even close to reasoning. And so that's why I think it matters here. So
what would be reasoning? I'm sorry.
At least the ability as a person to say, I'm going to examine reality, my existence, unanswered questions I have, why some of those unanswered questions might consider religion or the supernatural or a God as a potential answer for them, and then make a decision. That would involve some sort of reasoning.
Right, but do children have that ability?
True, I don't think so.
So what does a child... What isn't a child indoctrinated into? I.e. math, i.e. science, i.e. cleanliness, or, what you should and shouldn't do, right? So, I mean, kids don't do whatever the hell their parents tell them to do, right? There's tons of things that kids don't do, i.e. brush your teeth before you go to sleep. Fuck that. i.e., wash your hands before you go in the refrigerator. Fuck that. i.e., whatever, right? There's tons of things that kids decide not to do. Now, the reason behind that is usually laziness, right? They're not making some ideological stance of, well, germs aren't that bad or blah, 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 blah. What they're just saying is, I'd rather go outside and play, and washing my hands takes, 45 seconds away from me jumping rope, right? So I just think we should be really clear with when we say indoctrination, because I wrote down two things: acceptance and teaching, right? So if I were to indoctrinate my child, how is that different from teaching them something that I know to be factual?
I think that's a fair question. And I think it comes down to, if a child ever gets to the point, and they do, right? They get to the point where they say, why is that true? Why is that the case? Why do I have to? You can back it up with something other than, this is just what it is. You need to swallow that. You shouldn't question it. You can evidence it. So you mentioned math, right? You can allow the child to prove out the math for themselves once they're capable. Obviously, when they're just learning whatever basic arithmetic.
Real quick, how is that different from proving out Jesus's fucking resurrection? Why? Why should I do this? Well, Jesus died for our sins. Oh, okay, right?
But we're agreeing that that's not proof, right?
No. But we can't. But that is proof to a child. Like, it's not proof to you and I, because that's a non sequitur, right? Like, what does one have to do with the other? But from a child's perspective, or even somebody who's not that bright's perspective, we don't have to just pick on children. People who are not that bright, who are able to be indoctrinated, like, indoctrination is a two-way street to me. It's not like I can just indoctrinate anybody I want. You have to want to be indoctrinated. You have to want that, whether you're a child or not. Because children have the ability to, so if a child would have asked the question, 2 + 2 is 4, whatever, like, that's not a great one, right?
I was going to use that exact one.
But go ahead.
You can demonstrate that, right?
Right.
So long as there are fundamentals that need to be agreed upon, right?
Right. And a child cannot do that, right? A child cannot say, "Oh, I understand the system of numbers that you're referring to, and the set of parameters that go into how these numbers need to, interact with each other, i.e., addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, exponentials, whatever." Right. So all of that is an acceptance of the rules of interaction with those numbers. And so people either accept it or they don't accept it. But let's go back to the situation where a child asks a question and you say, well, we can prove that out. Well, you don't prove out that. Let's just say something that I think we agree on, right? Washing your hands before you go into the refrigerator from outside, right? Your hands are dirty. You do not want those germs in the refrigerator to then get in your food and possibly get somebody sick. We agree with that, correct?
Okay.
How do we prove that to a child?
That's not the point. The point is the proof, eventually, when a child can reason, can happen. And it can never happen with something that cannot be evidenced ever, like the resurrection of Christ absolves everyone of their sin. Right? You know the science behind germ theory. We can eventually show that if you swab hands, you've brought in a number of bacteria and whatever else on your hands. And we can demonstrate the correlation through studies that these bacteria and viruses and whatever else you brought in caused these illnesses.
No. Viruses and bacteria do not cause illnesses. That's the devil.
Well, exactly, right? That's a perfect example. That is a perfect example of someone. Foosball's the devil, Bobby, is perfect, right? Because there are, although albeit small, a number of people who will just accept that for the rest of their lives because that's just what has been drilled into their heads. And again, that will never be able to be evidenced. No one will ever be able to show that the devil causes illness. But you can show through the scientific method the germ theory of disease. You can demonstrate that. And I agree with you. A child's not going to get that, right? I would want, as a parent, a 5, a 6, a 7-year-old who's not going to get that for a long time to just be like, hey, trust me on this one. We'll learn it later. You'll see it. There is a reason we don't do it. And this is why. You could get sick. It's just as you said, right? You don't want someone to get sick from eating the food. Now, the child might go, why would they get sick? You can go, the germ theory disease. You realize you're entering a world where you're not going to be able to explain anything to them that they're going to understand.
Yeah,
but my point is, there's a vast difference between the fact that you can eventually, to a human being capable of reasoning, demonstrate that and allow them to reason that to themselves. In this case, the scientific method.
It sounds like you're saying indoctrination is not the problem, right? If you're saying that all 4-year-olds are indoctrinated because they do not have the ability to make the logical connections between premises, then all children are indoctrinated, correct?
I'm going to go back to the definition here.
Fuck the definition. Just answer the question.
No, I think it matters, and I'm trying to be measured here. Accept a set of beliefs. And I think that's the difference. To accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
Permission to treat this witness as a hostile?
No. I'll answer your question now. I just wanted to be specific there. I think it's necessary to separate. You are lumping into all of teaching, everything that is given to a child in terms of knowledge, as part of this indoctrination. But I think we need to separate what is just a belief we need to define belief then also, right? What is just a belief versus what is a demonstrable fact? Right,
but this is irrelevant to a child. There's no such thing as a fact to a child.
It doesn't matter. It
does because we're talking about children, right? Because you just said an adult, once they get older, then they have the ability. So we're not like, that's what, are we even judging people under a certain age to have been indoctrinated when they don't have the ability to reason? And reason is a part of, or critique is a part of the definition. So I'm thinking that indoctrination should not apply to a subject that does not have the ability to do the thing that's a part of the definition of indoctrination.
The definition just says accept a set of beliefs uncritically. So
right.
They just need the ability to accept or not accept.
No, but they have to have the ability to be critical. And children cannot be critical because they do not have an alternate framework by which to assess a situation, right? They don't have the ability to say, okay, this is bullshit. Jesus was was a righteous man, but he was not the Messiah. Muhammad was, or Ganesh was, or whomever, or Paul was. Wait, which Paul are we talking about? Me or Damascus?
Saul.
Right.
That's an interesting point. I'm trying to digest that because children don't have the ability to think critically at all. That's what we're purporting. This may be weak, but I'm going to say, then why would children ask why ever?
Oh, Jesus. Stop, sir. Can I be honest and just say that you know why?
No.
Okay.
Of course you can. Go. What's going on?
No, I'm saying the fact that you are a father. I'm not sure if you wanted to, I mean, you can obviously edit that out, but you're a dad. You know why. For no fucking reason at all. Because they don't fucking want to. Why is a fun thing to do for kids? Like, sometimes it's just like a way to have conversation or interaction.
I totally disagree.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, maybe, once again, you are the professional and I am not. Because
no, definitely not. Right? Like, and I don't think either one of us should.
I wasn't trying to be facetious. I was genuinely saying, I mean, you have the more specific every single fucking day experience where
no, and I would concede that has nothing to do with what I'm about to reply with. I would imagine, this is a complete guess. I would imagine that it's just part of childhood nature because you are in this like sponge state where you're trying to absorb knowledge. And once you learn the word why elicits an explanation most of the time, once you realize when
Right,
I
but
say why,
information right, really quick, I got to cut you off. That's more information that I still can't do anything with, right? So when a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old asks you why, you saying that they're saying, bro, I don't know, because the 5 or 6 things that I've thought of are totally fine. Like, what am I missing here? Like, a kid is not saying, what am I missing here?
I agree with you.
Wait,
And there I will say there's some age where they don't completely get the use of the word why.
right, why presupposes that I have. So if we're talking about danger, don't touch the stove. It's hot. Well, why? Right? Like they don't. True, they don't know about burning, but they also don't know because you're going to burn yourself. Okay, who cares? Because they don't know what burning means yet. And that's one example, but it could be any example where once you tell them the why, they still do not have a concept of why that is a quote unquote bad thing.
I'm going to use that one specifically or answer that one specifically. As a parent, I would imagine it's more instructive. By a certain age, they will have developed the concept of hurt and pain.
Absolutely.
And that may include 3 or 4. I agree with you, right? 3 or 4, if you're throwing in some non sequitur whys, yes, right? Clearly it's not there yet. But if they're asking why in that scenario, I think it's more instructive for the parent to be like, you could get hurt. We don't like getting hurt, right? You remember you got hurt that one time? You cried like a 3-year-old because you're a 3-year-old?
They have context, right? But context is something that we constantly grow with, and then so when I said the whole thing about why, I'm not saying that every time a kid says why, it's a total, jackass move of who the fuck cares and who the fuck knows. What I'm saying is, many times when the child is asking why, it is because they want to continue having a conversation or getting feedback or interaction on that subject. But even when they ask why and they get the why, they still probably, and we're talking about, like I said, kids, like anywhere between 3 and, because once you're 3, you can actually have conversation a little bit. So anywhere from between 3 and 7 or 8, where it's like, once they get to 8 or 9, then you can really start saying, well, how grandpa lives, blah, blah, blah. And we drive and whatever. Like you can, things on the TV, they start to learn context about the world around them, not just what's in their house and at their school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But all of that takes time. And to pull it all the way back to indoctrination, in my point, I think before we even attack this word of indoctrination, we have to agree that you have to have certain things to be indoctrinated. Because every child, to me, is being indoctrinated, right? A baby is being indoctrinated, how to breastfeed or how to operate when their diaper's being changed or whatever. I don't know. Whatever. Walking. What to touch, what not to touch. That's indoctrination. If we're looking at indoctrination being, hey, you don't have a choice. We're taking away your free will. We're taking away your ability to challenge this. You just do exactly what you're told to do, whether it be physical.
But it's not, again, I think the definition is specific enough where it says accept a set of beliefs. So it's not accept instructions without questioning. It's accept a set of beliefs.
Okay.
Right. And so in that sense, I'm going to argue in favor of you can't be reasoned out of something you weren't reasoned into. I will go somewhere in between though, right? So and I'll let you talk about why you threw it completely out of the water now that we covered some of indoctrination, but I will go somewhere in between where I understand the sentiment of that phrase. I think it's far more difficult for someone whose entire worldview and quote unquote understanding of everything is based on just accept what someone else has told you your whole life is very, very difficult, right? It's very difficult to get to reason with that person, to get that person to reason about everything that they've just been told to accept, to believe. But I agree with you. I don't think it's impossible. So the way it's phrased where you cannot, I don't think that holds. I just think it's more difficult.
Okay. Well, Nice talking to you, buddy. Have a good one.
No, man. Talk about. I mean, I would want to wrap it up in the next 5, but go ahead. So, is your rejection of that claim just based on the fact that you're rejecting the idea of indoctrination as a whole?
No, I don't think indoctrination is exactly a part of that. That's something that you smuggled in. But what I will say is that I agree exactly with what you just said. It is more, but that goes for anything in any body, right? So whether you've been indoctrinated or not, it's hard to get people to change their minds because people see themselves as a collection of their beliefs. And so if I come up to somebody and tell them, hey, do me a favor, that waist trainer that you've been using for the last 3 years, it's dumb. Stop doing it. And they're like, no, it's working. Right. But is it working, or are the other things that you're doing working? And it's hard to have that conversation with them because they've been wearing the fucking waist trainer. Right? You have to have a control, and they have to give a shit about logic, right? The
scientific method, period.
Right. Is there a control? Like, is it the waist trainer or is it something else?
Yeah. Because how many variables have you introduced, and why are you, with absolute certainty, attributing it to only one of those? I think that's a great example.
And what did you do to come to the conclusion that the waist trainer was going to help you before you used the waist trainer? Right? Because you can always say, well, I've been wearing this lucky glove and I've never shot above an 86. Okay. Have you taken the glove off? No. Okay, we'll take it off. Well, no, I'm not shooting above an 86. Okay, well then you can't prove to me that the glove is the reason for the season.
I think that goes back to our first episode, right? Like, I just want people to get to that point, and it's difficult in the dangerous climate of today's anti-science. I get it, right? Science doesn't explain everything. That it doesn't purport to, though. We need to get there first. And as you said with the waist trainer, it's just an understanding of the scientific method. Why are we comfortable making claims without evidence? That's what we covered in the first episode. And I want more people to think critically enough to say, yeah, you know what? If I'm going to make a claim, I should have to evidence that claim.
No, buddy, bro. We just talked about that and we disagree. Like, that's, most people are not doing that because that's just not in the human, like, modus operandi. Listen, the modus operandi is the free rider concept of how little work can I do, both physically and mentally, but still enjoy what everybody else enjoys. Right? I'm going to be a part of society. I'm not going to think as hard as the smartest guy. I'm not going to work as hard as the hardest worker, but I'm going to enjoy, I'm going to think 20% as hard as the smartest guy and work 40% as hard as the hardest worker. But I'm going to enjoy 75% as much as everybody. That's a fucking win. And that's what people do. So I don't even think, I mean, a part of it is a willful, whatever, but I think a part of it is just human nature to say, why am I doing that when everybody else is doing all the thinking for me? People are mentally lazy. And I think it's somewhat human nature to free ride on the efforts of others. And so when a person decides to wear a waist trainer, and that's what marketing is, to know how stupid and vulnerable and susceptible people are, and then use that to say, hey, we're going to put this woman who's never worn a waist trainer, but who looks like a fucking amazing, beautiful, classically attractive woman, put her in a waist trainer, have her do some fucking Kegels or whatever, and I don't understand why you're laughing.
I don't know if that's actually part of the waist trainer regimen, but that's funny.
Oh, it's not? You know what? I was doing something wrong. My apologies. I'll have to call that young lady back. But seriously, like, that's how marketing works. It's like to know how silly people are and gullible they are, and just capitalize on it. So indoctrination, that's why I don't really look at, what you told somebody as a kid. The question is, Once that kid gets older and starts deciding, yeah, I was not having sex because my parents told me not to. I was not doing drugs because my parents told me not to. I didn't buy a knife. I didn't get a gun. I didn't do drugs. All the things my parents told me not to do. Then when they hit 11, they start smoking cigarettes, knowing that their parents told them not to. They start having sex. Parents told them not to. Then they're making specific willful decisions to disobey their parents, regardless of what the outcomes are and what the punishments or repercussions are. And so that's when I think we can start saying, okay, this person has been indoctrinated. When they keep saying, you know what, not gonna have sex, not gonna smoke cigarettes, just even though I want to, and I know what the negatives are, but I still want to do it. I'm not gonna do it because my parents told me to, and that's that. Like, if it's just because the Bible told me so, or my parents told me so, or whatever, that to me is indoctrination. But again,
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to interject. I don't remember if we did talk about this on earlier episodes or the first or the second one where we were kind of on religion. To me, the difference there will always be, and I agree with you, right? It's hypocrisy at its finest to pick and choose, to cherry pick, to say, oh, there are some things that are really holy, pun intended, and then some things that I'm going to make some choices about because, I just want to live life and I'm human and I'm making a decision that I really don't think it's the end of the world if I do have premarital sex or get a tattoo or eat shellfish or whatever it is. I still think, unfortunately, with the indoctrinated mind, it's very different for some things that you can kind of argue are inconsequential, whereas some things to them, and you know what, I'm going to concede, I think you're right. I think it's still an amount of cherry picking, but to me you're still overall indoctrinated even if you make those decisions, because you are saying, the person who is in this position where they're saying, I'm going to have premarital sex, but I'm not going to take the Lord's name in vain, whatever decisions they make, they're still making those other decisions because they do think they're placing some sort of life and death value on their eternal soul to say, damn, if I break that one, there's no going back. There's no coming back in the eyes of God.
agreed. Yeah. Which is why I have no sympathy for people like that. Like, I don't know if that's indoctrination or if that's just, once again, I just think you're being an idiot. Like, indoctrination to me is when you truly swallow it. What do they call it?
Fundamentalist?
No,
hook, line, and sinker.
Hook, line, and sinker. Right? If you swallow a hook, line, and sinker, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so those people who are true Muslims or true Christians or true Jews, and they live to the letter of the law, I have a level of respect for them, even though I respect them to be absolute idiots. But I have a level of respect for them because at least they follow through and they're doing what they're saying that they believe.
To me,
they can choose and go left and right when it's to their benefit. I don't think that's indoctrination. I think you're just being what I was describing before. You're making sure that you fit in on some level so that you're accepted and welcomed in your social circles for your own benefit. Like, yeah, I have these conversations all the time. But yeah, love the sinner, not the sin, or whatever. Or love the sinner, not the sin. And you know, people are out there saying, yeah, I'm not perfect. But we're not asking you to be perfect. We're asking you to not litter. Right? Littering is not a difficult thing to not do. Just don't fucking do it. I understand if you say it's hard not to. I don't know what the other things are. But littering is not a hard thing to do. It's a simple decision of not throwing things on the ground that you no longer want in your hand. But when people say, well, I'm not perfect, that's just a fucking excuse to be a piece of shit jackass.
All right, man. Let's wrap it there. I think that was really good.
It's going to suck their ass.
It doesn't mean we can't continue this like into another episode, or maybe we string two of them together. But I think we had a lot of good back and forth there. Let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe.
And yeah, you can hit me on my OnlyFans account.